Hey buddies, welcome to another Brazilian Buddy Show. My name is Andrey and I'm here to prove to you that Brazil is more than samba, football, and carnival. And today we have two guests here. So I'm really excited. It's the first time that we are talking like in a group in this episode. So Chris, Winfield, welcome. So how are you?
Hey, we're great, Andre. Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it. We just got finished a whirlwind of 2 weeks in Brazil. That was my first time. So I'm really excited to recap the trip. Ask me anything, man. I'll be honest. I love the place.
And Winfield?
Exactly. As Chris said, thanks for having us on, Andre. This is my fourth time in Brazil, so a little bit of a different experience to Chris. My wife is Mineiro, so a little bit more of nuance in terms of the country and some things, but I think it should be a great episode. So thanks for having us again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And first of all, I would like to ask why Brazil? You can talk a little bit about the first impressions before and then later. So, Brazil, how does it start?
You want to
Go
lead
for it, Chris.
on that one, Winfield?
Yeah, so sure, I'll start off. So for me, Brazil was very much what was in the media in terms of the headlines, whether it was the highest one of the highest murder rate cities in the world, drug trafficking, all of the vices and crimes that was just kind of what came into my head. And I'd done a fair bit of traveling prior to coming to Brazil. I think I was around 50, 60 countries. And but South America always had that kind of, what's going to happen? You never know what's around the corner. So, but once I came down here, it was absolutely amazing. I had heard some rumors as well that people didn't like gringos. They were jealous or whatever. They had some kind of prejudice towards gringos, and I did not experience that whatsoever. People are so warm, even if they just meet you, even if you don't know them well, they will try to help you, even if you don't speak Portuguese. Everybody is just really welcoming and incredibly hospitable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So my beginning was the same as Winfield. Here we get a lot of news about Brazil besides the World Cup, the Olympics, high level, not the safest place. Don't necessarily go. A lot of bad press because of COVID and the entire situation of recent. But Winfield and I, we run a podcast called The Locales Unknown. So we're avid travelers and we're always looking to go everywhere that we can. And my impression, or I should say, my influence was really because of Winfield and his ties already to Brazil, living down there for a little while. His wife is Brazilian, so he talked up a huge game about it. So I said, okay. I was in Peru early September of 2021. We're filming this now in January 2022. So I already had that nice taste of South America and I wanted more. So I was talking to Winfield and he said, why don't you come down while I'm here? And of course, I wouldn't pass up the opportunity. So I went with a little bit of a better impression just because of Winfield, going through the barrier first to understand that people are really respectful, people are helpful, and it's extremely warm and welcoming. So as soon as I touched down in Brazil, everything matched that expectation. People were incredible. I don't speak Portuguese. I know very few words. I tried to learn a bunch on my way down and I failed miserably. But the first day I was there, it was in Manaus before meeting up with Winfield, and I needed to find some cash and we needed an ATM. So I was walking around and I actually asked these police officers where an ATM was. Actually, it was a tour guide in the center of town. And he brought me to the police officers and they barely spoke English. So I was trying to do Google Translate and we finally got the idea. And they actually gave me a ride to the local ATM. And right there, I was hooked, man. Like I fell in love with the hospitality. I knew I was in good hands. That gap between what you hear on the news and what you see with real people is huge. And I knew that, I loved it.
Yeah, I was in Manaus as well. I think 2019. I'm not sure. And I saw a lot of foreigners there. I was impressed. I did like a tour, and I was with four Chinese, and a couple. The guy was French and the girl was Portuguese. So like that's amazing because a Chinese in the Amazon rainforest, like it was like a totally surprise. And I don't know if you did the trip that you can see like the river dolphins, or you could be in the indigenous village. You
Yeah.
could see a little bit about. Yeah, can you talk a little bit? How was it?
Of course, yeah, that was actually our first day together. So we made our way to Manaus because we were going on a 3-day trip through the Amazon rainforest, 2 nights of jungle camping, as well as kayaking, mountain bike, and hiking. But we had an extra day built in beforehand. So we were trying to figure out what to do. And we landed a great opportunity with a local guide. His name's Louise. And we did the dolphin swimming, the river dolphins, the pink dolphins. We did the local tribe. And then we also, there was seeing where the Rio Negro meets the Amazon River. So truly incredible. And, it was a long day, but each one just kept getting better and better and better. So really cool experience. I know Winfield loved it, especially the dolphin part, huh?
Yes, he throws me under the bus there because these dolphins just come out of nowhere with their razor sharp teeth. But Chris is very animal friendly. I like to see animals at a distance typically. So, but no, he's exactly right. Amazing day, and we were very fortunate to be able to have that experience, and also with this tribe, which is 65 kilometers from Manaus, the Tatuyu tribe. So that was a real honor to be able to interact and see an authentic cultural experience as opposed to something that's just staged for tourists.
Yeah, I have the feeling that you can correct me, okay? This is just a feeling about Americans think that Brazil could be more similar to Manaus in general. Am I wrong? Like a jungle with animals, wild animals in general.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say that when I think of before coming to Brazil and speaking to people, it's either one of two things. Either everything is the Amazon rainforest or everything is Rio. There's no in between. So, we'll tell you all about the trip as we continue, but we got to see so many different areas of Brazil, and it's a massive country. To expect that it's all going to look alike is just ridiculous. So, I mean, we got the flair of the jungle, seeing the city of Manaus, which I was extremely impressed with to begin with. I mean, it was a bustling area for being that hotspot within the Amazon. And then we got to see beyond that. But yeah, I would say people think either it's the Amazon or Rio and nothing in between. And they're so wrong.
I completely agree. I always think back to my Aussie friends when I was living in Australia saying, they're legitimately Americans that think that we ride kangaroos to work. And I said, well, you do, right? Of course.
Wait, they don't?
I know. Newsflash. Come on. But no, Chris hit the nail on the head there. It's literally one of two things. And actually talking to a guy here in Itaúna, Minas Gerais, and he was working in Cairo for a while. And he was trying to explain Itaúna and Minas in general to Egyptians. So he started off with, okay, Itaúna is kind of outside of BH, Belo Horizonte, and which is the capital of the state. Nobody had ever heard of any of these places, right? He said, so by the end of the trip, he was basically telling everybody, yes, I'm from Rio. I live with the monkeys in the jungle. I'm Carioca, because that's the stereotype, right? But as Chris said, like any place, you peel back the layers just like an onion and you will find something remarkable. And that's truly what Brazil is.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, if a foreigner asks like, hey, which states or which cities to visit in Brazil, of course, I would say São Paulo and Rio, the most famous. But as you said, guys, like you have so many interesting places to see. I know that we export a lot of our nature when we talk about beaches in the northeast of Brazil, but nobody, search about, or even Minas Gerais, in my opinion, the best Brazilian cuisine that we have here. But they never heard it before. Like even Iguaçu Falls, I don't know, right? And then how many states did you visit here in Brazil? Minas, Amazonas, what else?
4.
Mhm.
I think.
Yes, that and that trip, which was what, 10 days, Chris? No,
Yeah, more like 12, I think.
12. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I've been to, I think, 6 states now, including Distrito Federal, the federal district. So, but that's just a smattering. I mean, we're talking about 27 states. You've been to 25, Andre?
24. Yeah, 24.
24. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But still, impressive.
You know, we talk about this, that maybe each country gets their wrong stereotype, but it's also kind of understandable. You know, what do people know about Brazil, or what do people know about the US, right? What do we export? So people think LA, people think New York, people think Washington, DC, or maybe Miami because of the party down there. But everything in between that has its own culture too, like Texas. People know Texas. But what about the states that are a little less known? You know, the Idaho, the North Dakota, the South Dakota, each one has its own culture like Brazil. Again, the size really matters, because you go to LA and then you go to New York, it's 2 different people, 2 different countries you're going to talk about. And then another one sitting in between. So I kind of felt that when we were in Brazil. We only did go to the 4, but still there's this hospitality that united the entire trip together, because we got to go to the Amazon. We got to go in the dead center of Rio and hike up to the top of Vidigal, one of the favelas. And then we got to go on a volunteer trip up to Juvenilia, and everyone was still incredibly hospitable, welcoming, and just warm. So I think that's the overall takeaway that I have for Brazil as far as people go.
Yeah, like being a Brazilian, I see, like, of course, Rio is the postcard of Brazil, and we export a lot of bad things like violence, robbery, and of course there are. I'm not saying that's not true, but we have still good things. Like we have the city, which is really interesting to go, and in Carnival when we are like in February, March, and nobody talk about that. Why? It's always bad stuff. So that's why I bring a lot of foreigners. Like, hey, talk about it, because I'm Brazilian. I can say a lot of good things here, but like you guys are important for that, to hear good things and make me feel really proud and happy to be Brazilian. And you were like in Minas Gerais, which is really interesting and different, right? How could you say differences between Minas Gerais and Rio, for example?
I think there are a lot in terms of, when I think Minas Gerais, I think Western Pennsylvania, even Texas, in terms of comparisons. Just for context, Minas Gerais, General Mines, the Portuguese discovered the mother lode of resources here, and it quickly catapulted to the richest state in Brazil for most of Brazil's history. I would say that's changed now, of course, with the advent of coffee and other cash crops in Sao Paulo. But the culture here is very different. What Mineiros are famous for being indirect, i.e. they can't get to something directly. They have to beat around the point, which is a little chato or annoying for me. But, I consider myself a direct person. But culturally, Mineiros are very tranquil. The overarching theme of community is extremely important, just like it is throughout Brazil. And Cariocas have a very different reputation in Brazil, from what I've heard. They have, well, let's just say a mixed reputation. I'm not going to go into too much detail there. But I've heard a lot from Mineiros that, especially in Rio, how they've been tricked or cheated or things like that by people in Rio, just in terms of prices and things of that nature. I don't know if that's true. That's never happened to me, but that's just some of the feedback that I've heard. And of course, Rio is huge. There's a lot of cultures there. It's a beach town, so everything's pretty chill. But at the same time, you have this underlying paranoia, I'd say, because there is a huge disparity in terms of inequality between the people that have it, which are on the beach, and the people that don't. So unfortunately, that's the reality. But those are my observations. Chris, you probably have some different ones.
Yeah, well, my knowledge isn't as in depth as yours, Winfield. It's important to note that the trip was kind of 100 miles an hour. So we only spent 2.5 days in Rio, maybe a total of 3 to 4 days in the state of Minas in various locations. How I would think of it, though, is Minas is real life and Rio is vacation. So almost like going to Miami where, people are flying in from everywhere. This is the postcard. We stayed right on Copacabana. So we're looking at what people are staring at on Instagram, and we're going about and not having to worry about getting to a job, commuting, dealing with traffic, or the general real life situations. Whereas Minas, a lot quieter, a lot smaller, and it just seemed more community vibe as well. Of course, you don't really find that community in any major city. That's just kind of a trend of a major city to begin with. But all in all, as far as interactions go, I couldn't really say that I noticed a big difference. Again, I don't speak Portuguese very well, or any, actually. I know maybe like 5 words. But so my interactions were limited, but I can still say that the expectation of Rio was there as far as natural beauty and just the amazement of it. But the danger aspect of it, I think, was overhyped. You go into any city, and we talk about this a lot on our podcast, any city, including cities in the United States, and there's going to be danger zones. So you stay away from those. And if you can stay away from them, then you generally can find that you have a good time and you just keep your eyes open. So I think that's important to note, that the level and the hype that's overplayed, at least as far as media goes here in the United States, the reality doesn't necessarily meet that, at least in my opinion.
You said something right, and I was thinking about, imagine if all the foreigners just go to Rio and they have like bad things. Okay, so like the guilty is the whole country. So the whole country, it's not good because of one city,
Right.
So that's the point. So that's why it's important to see other aspects of Brazil, like to go to other places, as we talk, like Manaus, even the south of Brazil, if you want to see like European vibe, so German people, Italian. I don't know if you were there, guys. No, south.
We weren't there, no, but we've been able to have a couple people speak about the Santa Catarina and learn more about the Blumenau area. And I mean, it seems totally different than the rest of Brazil. But even on our way from Rio to Belo, we stopped in Petrópolis, and that seemed to have a European vibe too, which was really cool. So each area, of course, has its own beauty, but it seemed different as well.
Yeah, Petrópolis, the imperial city. So why? Because we were an empire, if you didn't know, guys, and our emperor, he was living there. So he built, like it's not castles, but his house. And then Petrópolis has this famous saying, like the imperial city. And it's nice to see that you guys experience something different, right? And it's inside of Rio State, because you have Rio de Janeiro State and Rio de Janeiro City. So that's pretty cool. And what about Minas Gerais, Manaus, Rio, and the fourth state?
On that trip, I went to Sao Paulo for my last night in Brazil. And then before Winfield and I met up, he was on the road with his wife as well. So he got to venture around on his way up to Amazonia. So on the way to Manaus.
Yep. We were in Goiás and Alto Paraíso and São Jorge. Chapada dos Veadeiros. I have to sound it out because it's a tough one. But the Deer Plateau, it's the easier one for me.
Yeah, interesting places. Because could you see a little bit of nature and in a different aspect, because okay, Brazil, it's like 60% covered by the Amazon rainforest, but at the same time, we have different landscapes, the same as we can see in America, like arid climates, or mountains, etc. Even snow in the south of Brazil, which is really cool. And then like Minas, Goiás. And I would like to ask you about the food. So can you compare the foods in Brazil? How could you talk about even, I don't know, like brigadeiro, pão de queijo?
Chris,
you, Winfield.
So yes, I'm very biased on this topic. I could do a full episode on it, but Brazil actually has the #2 cheese in the world currently, and that's from Minas. I tried it. I actually have some in the fridge right now, I think, too. It's amazing.
Even good after you keep it in a backpack for 6 or 7 hours.
Exactly. Ideally not in a hot airplane and car, but sometimes you gotta improvise. So fortunately, the salt rind layer was strong enough to hold the freshness. But going back to what you were saying before about foreigners not knowing about cuisine, I mean, Mineiro cuisine is world class. Period. I can't describe it any other way. But it's not known in the food scene around the world. Part of it's publicity, right? But you have a lot of really high-end chefs, especially in BH, Belo Horizonte, where they were trained in Europe, they were trained in the States, they were trained at Michelin star level places, and they come back to Brazil. But it's a different expectation. Typically, Brazilian clients have a different expectation when they go out to dinner or when they dine or eat or drink out even. So, but the food is, I would say, a lot of it's home style cuisine. Tropeiro is I would say, the state dish of Minas. There's tutu, there's chuchu, there's, I mean, the list goes on and on. But the food, especially in Minas, is extraordinary. And what's really interesting to me too is that each town has its own production. So for instance, that cheese is from one town that's 5 or 6 hours away from the capital, or 10 hours away sometimes. Or this amazing cachaça is only produced at this one place that's 15 hours from the city, which is just mind-boggling to me, because if you could combine all of these into and have the marketing power to use all of those products to export, that would be something special, and that could truly transform the culinary scene here.
Yeah, like if I export food from Minas, and the foreigners can ask like, Minas in Brazil, what is this? And then they can search and go to Minas. So and this is something cultural and funny. I'm from São Paulo state, and sometimes I can see like, hey, I'm going to Minas, and then like, hey, could you bring me some cheese, please? So it's really common to see like bringing food to us, and that's what I said. Like the best cuisine in Brazil, Minas Gerais. Period. Like that's my opinion. Goiás, yeah, a little bit as well. We have different cuisines in the north. They have like more something indigenous. I don't know if you agree with me when you were in Manaus, like pirarucu, which is like a fish from there. And etc. A lot of indigenous experience, and even in Salvador, it's more African. I don't know if you could see acarajé. I don't know, vatapá. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm saying something. Moqueca. Yeah, thanks. Exactly. So good foods in general. And what about you, Chris? Like Brazilian foods?
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to have Winfiled answer first, because he has more of like the entree portion. I had more of an appetizer because, again, our trip was so quick and it was unique too. We went on a jungle adventure up in Manaus. So that was unique. Our guide was cooking us meals out in the middle of the jungle. Then in Rio, it was a whirlwind. Yeah, we stopped at more of the quintessential place like Colombo, the beautiful bistro. And then also I grabbed dinner later in the night, another night, at a local restaurant. Really good. But I expect food in a place like Rio to be really good, right? It's a major city. It's international. You have a flair from all over the world. So when we went to Minas, I got to experience homemade cooking. So feijoada, I'm butchering that, I'm sure. But we stayed with Winfield's in-laws. So they made us food. So I got to experience real at-home cooking, and it was made with love. It was delicious, man. I got to say, I would agree with you so far that Minas Gerais has the best food because it was home cooked, and I loved it. The only rival, though, was when I went to Sao Paulo and had sushi, because that was unreal. That was my last night in Brazil, and it kind of capped everything off as far as the food goes. So I wasn't expecting it to live up to the hype. Everyone said, "Oh, Sao Paulo has the best sushi." I'm like, okay, well, I'm from the New York area. We claim to have the best sushi too, so we'll see. But when I had it, best sushi I've ever had. So it was really good.
That's high praise coming from a non-city guy too.
Oh man, it was really good.
Yeah, this is like a good fight. Yeah, I never been to US, like, but you have foods from, to the world. Like everybody is in America, and I always say this. And we have the biggest Japanese community outside of Japan. So like, even not Japanese, like you can see Thailand, Chinese, Asians in general. So we have Liberdade neighborhood. I don't know if have you been there, Liberdade?
I haven't. I stayed in ETMBB. I'm butchering that as well, I'm sure. But I was right around all of the nice sushi restaurants area, and Winfield was the one that chose that area for me. Thank you, Winfield. And it was mainly because it was next to all the sushi. So that was my main goal. I was there for one night. Yeah.
I was actually in Liberdade on Monday. Because I was coming back from Buenos Aires. So we actually spent the day and went over to little Tokyo. So you're exactly right. Just a mishmash of cultures, but yeah, primarily Japanese focused. Also the largest number of Italians outside of Italy, because we often think US or Argentina even, right? Yeah. But Brazil has that claim to fame as well. So that's one thing that I didn't realize when I first came to Brazil. The diversity of ethnicities. It's really it might even rival or might even eclipse that of the U.S. in terms of and the way that people are come together. It's a much more cohesive society, in my opinion.
Yeah, one more thing about the food too. I thought it was really cool. We tried tapioca in 3 out of the 4 states, and each one was completely different. So up in Manaus, it seemed to be a larger portion, more of a almost like a sandwich, however you want to call it, like a panini. And then coming down to Rio, it was more bite size, a little bit more, I guess, classed up. And then over in Minas, it was completely different too. So that was really cool to see. We have that in the United States too. When you have such a huge landmass area, cultures are eventually going to mix and things are going to change and people are going to do things their own way. And it's going to become a staple of the area. So to be able to experience that was really interesting. Delicious everywhere. So
yeah, I'm Brazilian, so I can say easily that I love Brazilian food. Like rice and beans.
Take credit for it.
Perfect combination. I love it. I love it. And guys, so Winfield is marriage or it's your girlfriend?
No, married.
Oh, married. Yeah, right. So yes. I love to ask this. I always ask this. How is a relationship with a Brazilian woman?
Nothing like getting put on the spot, right? But that's the beauty of the random draw of questions. So it's fantastic to sum it up. First of all, I guess my experience with Brazilians prior to meeting my wife was extremely limited, if at all. I'm trying to recall off the top of my head. I had spent a lot of time in Asia. I'm a lawyer by trade, so I spent 3 years in Australia, and after that I moved to different parts of Asia. So I had a very different perspective, and then kind of came back to the Americas. But I didn't have a lot of experience in Latin America. So I would say that passion is definitely one thing that's very much a part of the relationship, which I think is great. Obviously, that goes both ways, but it's very different to some of the other cultures and experiences that I've had in terms of just how the dynamic works. Also, I think there's some things as well in terms of, well, just small cultural things, right? Like, Brazilians take 3 or 4 showers a day. I'm just thinking to myself, why? My skin is so dry after one. let alone 4. Also, this is all over the internet too. Brushing teeth. That's like obsessed with brushing teeth, which is great oral hygiene. Don't get me wrong, but 5-6 times a day. So no, I'm not saying my wife does all of these things, right? But I'm just those are some of the general observations, and also hanging out with friends. The sense of community is really strong. So before I spoke Portuguese, I would go with my wife to these all Brazilian parties in the U.S. And I mean, everybody's Brazilian, and you're the gringo. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, wow, I really need to learn the language to make sure they're not talking about me. Yeah, that's kind of it in summary.
And Chris, you told me that you had something, right? Like an affair. Could you talk a little bit?
An affair, yeah. I don't know about that. Up here, that means a different thing. But yeah, I had the opportunity to meet a few Brazilian girls, have some interactions. It was definitely fun. So I think what Winfield was saying before holds true. Passion is number one. Touch, physical touch too, is another thing. Now, that goes beyond just male-female interaction too. Just friends, always hugging, kissing, touching. It's part of the culture, but I feel like that goes into that Latin flair and fire behind it too. And I personally love that. And I love seeing that. I would say Brazilians are far less conservative, where it's not this back and forth game. They'll be honest. They'll tell you, and they'll either like you or not. And it's up to you to pick up on that rather than trying to beat around the bush. So it was really interesting. Winfield was describing also the right thing. Everything seems to be community based. I didn't have this experience firsthand necessarily, but when I was out and around and just looking, everyone's in big groups. And Winfield was even saying a common thing in Brazil is that people will go out on first dates or several dates with friends, not so much just solo. So here in the States, it's very much a solo thing. You interact, you're able to get to know each other, and it's almost a privilege to be able to meet someone's friends. It's like you need to first prove to me that I like you, and then you can meet my friends and they have to like you too. In Brazil, it seemed like, well, if my friends don't like you right off the bat, I'm not even going to bother with you. So it seems to be a little bit different, but I had a great time. Yeah, again, I like that passion. I like that immediate connection, the touch. I feel like it's just something very interesting. On that note, another thing that's interesting is motels have a very different meaning in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you want to go down there, but
sure.
Nice segue.
Yeah, sure. So, could you describe a Brazilian motel?
I cannot. I haven't seen the inside of one, but
okay.
we were driving around. I think that was the first time we saw Winfield, and I was like, "What's with all these motels? It seems like there's like a cowboy here. There's a big something there." And then, actually, no, we were talking about how culturally, most of the time, people will live with their parents or family until they find a significant other or spouse and then move out. So first, my first question is like, well, where do you find some alone time then? Because that's a little awkward if mom's sharing a wall with you, and you're bringing someone home. And that's when he brought up motels, and I was a little shocked. So here in the United States, we have themed motels, but they went out of style maybe in the 70s. They are very bad places to go to now. The pay-by-hour ones are usually with sketchy people, ones that you don't really want to go and lay down in the bed. But just to hear that all about, that's the normal thing for everyone. It's not just for young kids, it's all the way up as well. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, motels in Brazil. It's more for couples. Let's say that. Yeah. So it's completely different, the culture, and I agree. I think that we are intense when we love. At least me, and yeah, it's all about communication. So if you like the girl, you say it. And this is a good subject to say that Brazilian women are not easy. Because sometimes we export this how can I say this, like this we are putting sexual thing related to Brazilian women, and I think that's not working. That's not correct, because culture is saying like we hug, we touch each other like a lot of times, and maybe people can have the wrong, the wrong feeling about how this work the things here. But yeah, we have a lot of friends. We hug, we kiss, even like, hey, how are you? And then we kiss in the cheek, which is really normal. And the people can get confused. So sometimes, like, I think the girl is interested about me, but she was just being nice. And even for foreigners, like if you hug the person, like, oh, she's on me, but that's not necessarily true. Right?
Yeah, I've actually had
Exactly.
that conversation with a couple different Brazilian girls about this, where they think that the reputation is that Brazilian girls are easy, or whatever words you want to use, but it's just a cultural difference. Again, we went back to saying that the rest of the world thinks of carnival and parties and crazy times, right? Where the rules might be a little bit different during those crazy times, but naturally, it doesn't mean you have the right, just because someone's going to come up and be passionate and affectionate to you, that you can take that to the next level without permission. So that's an important understanding, because things don't necessarily operate that way up here. But fortunately, I live in Florida, and there's a lot of Latin culture here. So I'm kind of used to that type of vibe, that Latin passion. You use aggressive or assertive, and it's an interesting dynamic.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do you want to say something, Winfield?
Yes, no, I was going to say you picked up on this, and I forgot to mention the beijando culture, the kissing culture. That's very, very important. Yes, in terms of Brazilians love to kiss, and when I say kiss, I don't mean a peck. I mean French kissing uh, to the max. So that's something that goes along, of course, with these themes we've been talking about of passion and all of that goes into the same mix. But you'll often see couples kissing in the middle of the street or holding hands. There's a lot more PDA or personal displays of affection than personally I enjoy seeing. But of course, that's subjective to the person. But
I'm okay with it.
it's you're okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's again, it's a cultural difference, as Chris said. It's not that one's better than the other. It's purely the fact that we respect each other's differences, and we just comment and notice them from afar.
Yeah, exactly. Like I totally agree. If I had like in an international relationship, let's say that I would love to enter inside of the culture of the person and talk a little bit how does it work things in your country, right? Because I don't know, like we love to share our culture in general. Maybe your wife does the same. I'm not sure, and yeah, make me feel happy. Like, hey, this is how this is the process in Brazil, and work like this, and that, and that's pretty cool. And could you talk a little bit about locales unknown for the listeners? Because I love your job, guys. First of all.
We really
Thank you.
appreciate it. So
Mhm.
we are a new travel company. It's called Locales Unknown. We're a podcast, and what we do is we try to shed light on the areas in various countries that might not be what you'll find in a travel guide or a tourism magazine or online blog. So usually, like we were talking, and you do a great job of this. Brazil is so much more than Rio. What we're trying to do is shed that same light all over the world. So Winfield and I have a certain style of travel. We'll usually pick the places that have less tourists, just to see what the culture truly is, what real life is. Most of the time, the places that I go, if it's a foreign country, I'll pick the place where I know no one else speaks English. It'll force me to get out of my comfort zone. It'll see what normal life is really like. So we interview people around the world, friends of friends, other people on social media, and we try to have them come on and just talk about their country and really, play up the fact that it is a great place. You know, we started this episode talking about the difference between what we hear in the media and what we see on the ground. And that's really what we do every episode, because it never is as dangerous, never is as bad. It's always so much better. Everyone's just trying to live their life and, you know, be happy, protect their community, have friends and family. So we want the world to know that.
Just echoing what Chris said, it's exactly right. We started this travel company and a podcast in order to continue to share our stories and adventures as well. Chris has been all over the world, so have I, and just inspiring people to travel and to go outside of their comfort zone as well. And what's important with that is, you know, taking it one step at a time. And even for wherever you're from, whatever your background, that doesn't matter. Each country has something that is special and that is newsworthy, that is headline worthy. If you look at how the world is portrayed, you would think that there's only 10% of the world worth visiting, right? You know, Western Europe, a handful of countries, maybe in the Pacific Rim. But as you travel more and as you interact with people more, you realize that we are all a human species. As Chris said, we all want the best for our friends, for our family. We're just trying to survive day to day, and the human condition is really that. We can speak of ourselves in the terms of a monolith. So yeah, this is why we started this, and we've been to 6 continents so far. We have new episodes every week from different parts of the world. So be sure to check us out.
And
yeah, that's awesome.
As a side note, we're just trying to meet people around the world. So when we end up in that country, we can meet up with them, hang out, you know, have someone to visit. So there's a benefit to
Precisely.
it. We love to travel. It goes hand in hand. You know, soon we'll be building out some more local experiences as well. So much more to come. Locales Unknown. We're all over social media as well as podcast platforms.
And 80 countries, right? 80.
For me, 79. I just booked Panama, so knock on wood, I get in. Yeah.
Just 79.
Yeah. Just getting
yeah,
started.
He's far ahead of me. I'm at 34.
34. Gosh, like Winfiled, it's the half of the world, right? The world is 160 something, right?
Yeah, we were just discussing that the other day on one of our episodes. Depending on how you count it, the UN's 193, the US recognizes 196. If you add in the territories and dominions, you're well over 200. One of our guests this week has been to 113. So yeah, got some work to do. But we had another person on the show who's been to 160, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, like for me, it was 6, but I'm going. I will go to every single place in the world as well. And there is a Brazilian, actually, he is in the Guinness Book. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he finished the world faster like ever, and he's guy.
Sem 96 sonos. Yeah, 196 streams.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shout out to Andre. We want you on.
Yeah,
We've been trying to get in touch with you.
Let's talk, Andre.
Yeah, hey, relax. I'm gonna talk to him. Sure. That I do exactly
your
the same.
connections, man.
I do exactly the same, but you know, I talk just only about Brazil and I exchange the countries. But yeah, you guys do. Yeah, that's awesome. Like you know, hear about the world and not just. I'm not saying that Brazil is the perfect place. You need to go to Brazil, of course, definitely. But you have other countries as well, like other awesome countries, and you need to hear all the stories and people, like normal people, human being, and talking about their country, food, you know. So that's awesome. I really appreciate. So guys, Chris, Winfiled, Chris, in my accent. Thank you so much. It was awesome to talk with you guys. The first time that I'm talking to two people. And thank you so much for being here in Brazil. You should, return again and see the Northeast and the South as well. And Win is in Brazil, right?
Sorry?
Are you in Brazil, right?
Yes, I'm in Itaúna. Shout out, I'm wearing this shirt, but shout out to Amigos de Minas. They were amazing. They an incredible volunteer experience in Juvenilia. Thank you so much. We will be back. They go 4 times a year. Check them out on Instagram. That was one of probably the most rewarding experience of the entire trip. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much as well. Like, that was awesome. And yeah, so my name is Andrey. You can find me Brazilian Buddy everywhere, like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Like, you can find me anywhere. And you guys, locales unknown exactly. So you can
That's
find
right.
on
Locales
YouTube.
unknown. We're all over as well. YouTube, all social media. We're pretty active on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and then our website, localesunknown.com. And then we're also on every podcast platform, Spotify, Google, Apple, all the rest.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm also just getting started on a South American adventure. I'm starting in Argentina, making my way through Chile, but I'm going to be back in Brazil. So Andre, you and I are going to grab sushi sometime in Sao Paulo.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Why not? I live here. Yeah, we can do it for sure. So guys, thank you so much. Muito obrigado. And I see you on the next episode. Ciao.
Thank you,
Muito
Andre.
obrigado. Ciao.